Yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Ramble cast. I am joined again by the ever-present.
Matt the Vet from Fearless Games.
Yes, it's
If that's still a thing, are we still a thing over there?
we're still a thing.
I guess.
Yeah, we're fearless and we game. We're fearless game.
We should probably do that more on that channel then.
Probably we should do some more of that stuff. But I figured 40k shenanigans run high,
They
and,
do.
and it got me thinking recently. The
Huh?
whole concept of deities and gods in 40k, right?
Mm,
Because you have the chaos gods,
yep.
you have the star gods,
Mm-hmm.
you have the Eldar
Pantheon.
pantheon of gods that are mostly dead or
All
missing.
but two.
Yeah, you have the potential star child that is the emperor, which is viewed as a god,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of
Got
these are
the orcs.
you got the orcs who have Gork and Mork, whatever that might be, wherever that might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could look at the hive mind as a potential godlike figure.
Yep. No, actually, no. I just realized there's technically the Eldar have three deities that are alive.
What would you counting Assyrian?
No. You got Isha. You got
Yeah,
Inyad,
yeah, but she's
and you got
captured still,
Sigurd.
right, Isha?
Isha, I could be wrong because they don't have any of this. Because the Eldar claim all their gods are dead. So I'm not sure if they know she's around. But if you read the Demon Codex,
Yeah, but
Nurgle has her in prison
right,
in a
she's still
cage
currently
to
prison.
test
Yeah,
test all of his diseases on her to see how they would react if he likes how they act.
yeah,
And that's supposedly how the Eldar are mostly immune to Nurgle, why you never see them get corrupted by Nurgle, because after she cures it in herself, she blesses the Eldar to be immune to whatever disease he just tested on her.
yeah. Crazy deity stuff.
Yep. Crazy mythological stuff.
Right, and with that you have the concept of demons and demonic because everything with the chaos gods is a demon. The
hmm
avatar of Cain has also been referred to as a demon and affected by demon stuff.
The Emperor has been put on record saying anything claiming to be a god is just a demon tricking you.
Right. Yeah. The only things that don't, to my knowledge, unless it's changed, have the demon subtype on them were star gods.
Um,
At least I don't
they
recall them
don't.
having it.
Yeah, they don't anymore.
Did they back
That
when they had the two big bads that were really like overpowered?
there's a thing. There's a going into this would probably be later on going on into the further discussion. I believe there's an actual in-game reason as to why they're not considered demonic.
Right. But my point is like, of all the deity-esque things we have on the battlefield, the 10 star gods I think were the only ones that didn't have the the demonic subtype to them. Right.
Yes, because they were the only deities or entities that we are aware of that have no connection to the warp.
Right. So, what's the deal with all these gods?
Um,
It's-
I've actually in recent times came up with an interesting theory behind the Eldar and Orc gods. In the whole grand scheme of things.
the orc ones, I think, of all the god stuff are really like all we have is the orcs worship Gork and Mork. Hey,
or
that
ma- or it's either Gork or
or Mork.
possibly Mork.
Well, yeah, possibly Mork, but they have those two gods, and then whenever they make a machine in one of the images, this is a Stampa devoted to Gork or Mork. It's like
Yep.
we don't really know anything past that except for the fact that we used to have a similar esque setup in Warhammer Fantasy, which would have a big foot stomp on the battlefield every so
Yep,
often.
that was a spell
Yeah.
stomp
Yeah.
where Gork or Mork would smash their foot down on the ground from the heavens.
Right.
And they actually had a template in the shape of a foot.
It was pretty funny, but
He's under his little toe. He gets hit.
yeah. But like,
Um,
we don't know anything about Gork or Mork really at all in 40k, aside from the fact that
they talk to Gazgul.
they talk to Gaskell, and that's like the only mention we have. It's so much so that I feel like even the developers forget about Gork and Mork.
Yep. That's the only real connection in the 40K universe that we have to them is Gazgul, because he's known as the Prophet of Gork and Mork.
Yeah.
Because I think he's the only god that I think he's the only war boss that claims to have been spoken to by them.
Well, he's not all there in the head, so
Yes. And no one's gonna question him. I'm just saying, like, um, actually, I think one other war boss claimed he was a prophet as well to get Gorguts' attention.
right. But was it a boss or was it a weird boy?
I think it was a boss because he was using tech, not psychic. He introduced Gazgul to a teleporter that he had. I don't believe it was a weird boy.
Gotcha. Because I think, like, that's the only other thing that I would, if they were gonna try and make Gorka Mork more of a hey, orc fans, you have gods, by the way. It's like
Yeah,
I would do
through
it
a
to the
weird
weird boy. But
But there's this one interesting theory that I recently came up with all that jazz, um, and it has to do with the old ones,
okay.
the enemies, the arch nemesis of the Necron tier, and all that jazz. The ones
Which, when you think about it, is kind of odd, right? Because like it's not because the old ones aren't necessarily the elder gods.
yes,
They're like the creator of the elder.
it's a weird thing, especially the fact that they hate them because they decided to Star Trek it up and not interfere with their development. Um,
Yeah.
that is basically what happened. They were like, "Please, could you give us tech?" It's like, "We cannot interfere with your development," and they flew away. um, but in the Necron Codex, it is established that, as far as the Necrons are aware, the Orcs and the Eldar are creations of the Old Ones. They actually were created specifically to help them fight the Eldar. Not the Eldar, the Necrons. Sorry. So one theory that I always thought was interesting was the Great Old Ones were also enemies of chaos. It's supposed like there are some theories out there that they're the creators of the Cabal. So I always thought would be interesting is they created the Eldar and they created the Orcs, and then later visited the Eldar to show them the technology of the Webway and all that jazz. And the Eldar were like, "Oh yes, and here's our gods," and ended up, the talk of their religion came into play. And the old ones are sitting there going, "Oh, look at what they made up. That's kind of cute." I feel like to the Eldar, they saw them as just another alien race, and they said, "Well, we are superior, and here's how we were created." And the old ones were down with that because a long theory with the Chaos Gods is their creation is based on belief. The more you believe in them, the more powerful they are. And the Great Old Ones were like, "You know what? Keep believing that. That is an awesome idea," because in that sense, the Eldar were creating these really nice and anti-chaos gods, and were essentially creating these entities in the warp. And then they went to the Orcs, and the Orcs might have assumed they were Gork and Mork, and they were like, "Keep thinking that," because it created warp entities in the warp to kind of off-balance the Chaos Gods, who were getting way too powerful.
Cool. Yeah. I mean,
and then they created Slaanesh, and the Great Old Ones are like, "What did you do?"
Like, we didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. I left you alone for 5 minutes, and this is what happens.
But I always sat there thinking, like, that's weird. If the Great Old Ones created the Eldar, they obviously would have been aware that the Eldar had created this pantheon in their society. Why didn't they ever correct them? Because the Eldar were intelligent enough, they would have understood if they went, "Actually, guys, we're the ones who created you, and here's how we did it," and blah, blah, blah. And I think they honestly let it slip so these Eldar gods would be created to offset the Chaos Gods.
Right. I've always kind of looked at it because here's my deal with the old ones, or the Slan as sometimes they're called. They're old. No, but is we don't really get anything to say they still exist, or if they were consumed or something, right? Like we
It's
just
it's heavily implied. The Necrons proclaim that they wiped them out because they won the war in heaven.
right, but that war in heaven was really against the elder gods and the old one, and that's
There's
where
two
it gets confusing.
there's two wars. The
Yeah.
Eldar have their own war in heaven where Cain fought with his own pantheon, and then there's the war against the Necrons that's referred to as the war in heaven as well.
Well, what I mean is the war in heaven was really Necron v Eldar slash old ones
Yeah.
with the Catan, but it's just the old one. See, this is a case of GW really kind of. You could see, like, when you start digging into the pantheon and the old ones and the gods of that time and all that, you really get to see back when 40K was really Warhammer Fantasy in space, space. But because it really gets
And
so convoluted.
It's also really funny, like, just random tangent how everyone's like, the Slan are coming back. I was like, well, okay, the only reason you think the Great Old Ones are the Slan is because the Slan in fantasy are known as the Great Old Ones. That's the only connection they have.
There are some really old, like, models for 40K stuff back, like when Road Traeger was like just birthed, that were called the
because they needed
Slan.
to use the fantasy models. And I'm like, you are aware the Slan are giant frog people that sit on chairs.
Yeah.
You really want an army of frog
people.
people sitting on chairs.
Yeah, of course, chair's the ultimate weapon. But
Unless you're dealing with stairs.
it's true. Well, that's what you got servants for, to carry your chair upstairs. But like, so it gets muddy waters there a lot. But like, I always kind of look at the elder gods as like the most anti-chaos gods you can have in 40K, because you have Assyrian, who is also like isn't that the name? I forget if it's a name that's slightly off or the exact same name as the Dire Avenger Phoenix Lord, or is that Assyrian?
No, that's Azurman.
Azurman, right? Azurman, who was like associated
Azurman,
with Assyrian.
Yes, who is I never pronounce that god's name correctly, but they're spelt similarly. Azurman is the hand of Aegir,
Yeah.
which is the king, the Phoenix King.
Yeah, exactly. That god is the Phoenix King. So you have that, which is like almost like they're channeling through that Phoenix Lord to be the hand of that king. Then you have like Kayla.
Well, it's actually just more of Azurman was hanging out in a chapel of Aegir, and he saw a bunch of thugs and went, "Step aside!" And they went, "Who the heck are you?" And they went, "I am the hand of Aegir." And he goes, "That sounds badass. Let's go." And then he just rolled with it.
Well, he did, but also, like, isn't he like at the end times he's going to be the last of the Phoenix Lords to die because of God reasons? Oh, Fuegan's gonna be the last. Right, Fuegan's the last to die, but isn't he like the Phoenix Lords have a really weird like death prophecy.
The Phoenix Lords, they don't they have no real connection to the deities. Basically, Azurman just said that he would carry out Aegir's will as his hand.
Oh yeah, but there is something deity with the Phoenix Lords, not like they are avatars
They have
of
a
them.
form of immortality,
Right.
which kind of makes them like mini demigods.
It's weird, to be honest. Like, I've always found the Phoenix Lords interesting, but kind of a weird setup, because at the same time, it's not like you have a Sermon, right? Who's the Dire Avenger, but that's not the original Sermon.
Yep. Well, what it is it's the body is different, but it's his consciousness, because his spirit is so strong. His personality overwrites whoever wears the armor.
Right. Like, the way I look at it,
technically not him.
but it's
a prime example is an Exarch, an Eldar Exarch. If when he dons the armor, it goes, okay, the original owner of this armor was Ted. I am not Ted, but I am pretending to be Ted.
well, kinda,
Well, that's basically how they're going with it. Like,
Well,
if you
with the Exarchs though, it's different because the Exarch has presumably the spirit stones of all the deceased Exarchs there to help
yes,
guide them.
they
Where
do,
with the
but what it
Phoenix
is they
Lords
don. Well, what
possess
it is
you.
is they don the name of the original Exarch, but they're fully aware that they're playing a role.
Right, but
When
with the Phoenix
when the
Lords,
Phoenix
it's
Lords,
like the Lich King of Warcraft. It just
it,
takes you over.
yes, when the Phoenix Lord dies and someone else puts on the armor, the Phoenix Lords are aware that it's not their original body, but it's whoever put on the armor is gone, and you are Azure-Man.
Right,
You
that's my
are
point. Like it's
Kahandras.
a complete possession of the
Yep,
person who wears the armor,
yep,
which
because
is
their
like
soul is just that powerful.
which has always been a weird setup to me, to be honest.
Yep,
and
it's
and
all
it,
because of the power of legend.
and
It's
what makes it even weirder is the striking scorpion situation with that one gone dark eldery, but then another one took its place.
yep.
So that
Uh,
was always really weird.
it's more of a it's one of those concepts where it's like because of how legendary and all the deeds that they've done, it caused their spirits to gain a form of immortality.
Right. It's a weird form of hype begets power.
Yep.
It's in a weird way, it's almost like a quasi mirror to how orcs are with believing something to be true, and therefore it is.
Yep. Basically, you could attest that the Phoenix Lords in a way are like demigods,
Yeah,
and
as
it's
long as
always
their
so
armor
great.
doesn't get destroyed.
Even then, like
Well, if
in
their
one
spirits get consumed, it's done. But
in one story, Kahandras's armor does get ripped open, and that's actually how he gets a new body. Because one dude's like, "Oh, let me actually look into Kahandras's armor," and it was just a void of like nothing in space, kind of like the tunnel at the end of 2001.
right,
And he was like, what? And then all of a sudden, Kahandras just woke up, and his armor is fully repaired, and the corpse of the striking scorpion that just looked into his body was just lying there. He goes, huh, so that's who's in me now. Okay.
which is when you think about it, especially with the Elder being a dying race, it's a very weird setup for both the Phoenix Lords and the Avatar of Setsuna FC. I mean, Kayla Mensha Kane.
Setsuna FC.
Because it's Kayla Mensha Kane. He's the only guy with three names.
Yes. But it's all one name.
He's the Setsuna FC of the gods of the Eldar.
It's true, but unlike Setsuna FC, people are fine with just calling him Kane.
Yeah, true. But
Because it's usually referred to as the path of Cain, not the path of Kayla Mensha Kane.
because that requires a sacrifice as well.
Yep.
And it's a very weird setup. It's like, what's with you, Eldar, and your powerful stuff requiring sacrifices when you're dying off? It's like...
It's more of a concept of, like, one thing that Gav Thorpe was saying about when he created the idea of Inyad was that their time as mortals is done, and all they can look forward to now is a possibility of a spiritual cleansing of themselves and ridding themselves of the sin that they committed when they were in life. And so it's kind of like a system of the Elder, like, we're screwed. You know, we'll hope that we can bank out of this, but yeah, sure. Let's just sacrifice one dude to Cain. We're gonna all be dead anyway.
But I get it, but it's a case of like, really not helping your cause out to try and survive this one, are you? It's like,
No, because it's not grim dark enough.
it's not grimdark enough.
But speaking of one thing I'd have to say I do like about the whole concept of deities and demons in the 40K universe is we can draw an origin to it.
Well, kind of.
Well, what I mean is, like, the Chaos Gods came from the Warp. They're a combination of human emotion.
Well, yeah. Well, not just human emotions. They're a combination of cosmic, like, core principles.
Yeah,
of, like, secrets.
That's what I mean, like, from
death.
like human because
Yeah.
they mostly get their power from humans worshiping them.
Yeah, because we are all sorts of, really mucking up the galaxy.
Yep, like, to the point where it has been theorized that the Emperor was unknowingly creating an extra Chaos God. The Eldar created their own god. like there's a place we can connect where they came from. Where in most other universes it's like, and here are the gods. Where'd they come from? They're the gods. What more do you need? Like I like the concept of there the idea of not believing in them makes sense because in their universe you can draw an origin to them.
Right. I mean, they're the thing that with 40K deities, they're a lot like real world ancient mythos deities, which all have origin stories.
Yep.
And
The only ones you really can't really say that for is the star gods because they kind of just were there.
well, I have a theory on the star gods. They're not demonic. They
No.
don't tap into the warp.
Yep.
I view the star gods as the materium's true form of deities as we can see them. I view them as what the old ones might have been like in terms of power. Like they are reality reshapers. That's what
So
they
you
do.
could say they're part of the continuum.
Right. But like,
For those who don't know, the continuum is just a race of people that reached such a high level of clarity and superiority that they practically became gods to the point that they see themselves as gods.
well, yeah, and the Catan might be something like that if we ever got origins, which we won't for them.
Oh,
But
no.
when you look at their powers, right? They first off, I look at them as truly being like take Galactus meets reality shaping meets Q meets something else, right? Because they consume stars and star gods. That's what they
Yep.
eat. It's kind of their favorite meal. And their powers are, lordship over technology in the case of the Void Dragon, right? You have
Yep.
time bending capability, of which the Cryptex can tap into a little bit. You have cosmic fire. You have reshaping the ground, grand illusionary scales, just shuffling mortals off their coil via, not even magic. It's not even considered a magic. It's just a power.
It's technological to the point of being considered
Well,
magic.
that's Cryptex. The Catan
Yep.
are just considered to have power. They're like this. They're like
Yeah.
they're like the power cosmic of Marvel. Is when you think about it. And I've always viewed them as kind of like, if they're, I don't know if this was deliberate or not, like because we don't know what made them or if they just made themselves, because they have that level of deities mythos to them.
Yep.
But I look at, you have the chaos gods, right? Everything that's kind of twisted and wrong. You have the Eldar pantheon, which was kind of like the opposite of that. Ishud and Nurgle, for example.
They were very Greek with the Eldar.
They were very
Like Greek and Roman.
they were very Greco-Roman and a little bit like Mesopotamian.
Yeah.
And so they have that as kind of like a straight up almost anti to the four core chaos gods.
Mm-hmm.
You have like a multitude of a pantheon to kind of counter that, almost like Titans, and then you have the gods of
Yep.
Greco-Roman time. Then you have, but that's all in the warp, right? That's all like
Yeah.
battling on that field. I view the Catan Star Gods as kind of like, we're not gonna take it to fight to them on their terms. We're gonna rock this world, this galaxy, this reality, and we're gonna own it, and they'll never take it. Almost kind of like if you look at Werewolf the Forsaken, you have the what was the thing with the that they were trying to keep in balance.
The spirit world.
The spirit, yeah, but what was that like barrier thing that they were?
No, there was a thing called the Gauntlet, which separated the spirit world from the mortal world.
Right, and there were like certain things that were trying to tear it down, others were trying to tighten it up.
Nope.
Was that in the Apocalypse? I forget which one it was.
In the Apocalypse, it was the worm, which you were trying to keep in balance with the weird.
Yeah, that's it. Then I'm thinking of that one. The worm and the weird,
and the Weaver. You were
Yeah,
trying
the
to keep
Weavers.
all three in balance.
right? Like I almost view like the Catan are almost Weaver-esque. Because and in terms of, I'm not trying to say it's exactly the same, but you have the battle going on in the warp, if you will, theoretically, mythologically, and then you have the Catan going. That the warp doesn't matter if we rule this one, right? Like if we keep them out of here, who cares of what they are in the warp? Keep them in the warp. We'll rule it here. I almost view it like, because they're reality shaping. They're not doing anything magic. Like, well, we call it magic, right? Because we don't have a better
Yeah.
term for it.
Well, because we don't understand it.
Right, exactly. And there's no really better term that we have to kind of refer to it as. But for them,
Yeah.
it's just powers. It's
Yep.
no different than like a chameleon changing their color.
Yep. What one thing that I always liked about the I always viewed the like you said, I kind of view the Satan as kind of like this is the closest we'll get to seeing what the old ones were like. I feel like they are basically beings that ascended to a form of godhood as close as you can get in a mortal realm sense.
Right.
And one of the things I really liked about them was because they kind of like showed just the in essence the dangers of gaining that much power because they haven't, as far as I'm aware, they haven't retconned this, but the warp hurts them. That's why the Black Stone fortresses were created, because they could shoot pure warp at them and it would like rip them to pieces. And it kind of was like interesting on that fact. They gained so much power in the mortal realm that the antimatter world, they couldn't like handle that in a sense. It basically counteracted their own existence, which
Right.
I always thought was kind of interesting. They kind of like show that what could happen if you gain too much power in the material world, just like how these deities in the warp, yes, they are powerful, but when they come to the mortal realm, they kind of do lose a bit of their power because they have to spend some of it making sure they can stay in the mortal realm.
Right. Well, I view the whole idea of the warp and everything with the Catan, like the way it's set up, is like, sure, in battle you may vanquish a Catan, right? You may just send them reeling back to like regather themselves, but you didn't kill it. Like the warp is like the Highlanderness, you know what I mean? Like they can, not that they can be only one, but they're immortal until it's almost like being a vampire and then getting staked in the heart and your head cut off. You're done, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of mythos. So it's kind of like, well, the orbital bombardment didn't kill it. It just sent it reeling and it'll be back. But that warp energy is its black damage, if you will.
That's an in joke for all of you folks at home.
Yes. But basically it's kind of like, it's like they're like the yin and yang almost, because they can also just rip apart the denizens of the warp, and warp powers manifested on them don't have the same effect. It's a weird setup.
Yeah. Well, that's why I find it's interesting, like because when psychers and such use the warp, they're actually using the warp to manifest some material thing on the plane. And that's what's that's what makes the Blackstone fortresses so powerful is they're not doing that. They're just channeling a bunch of warp energy, pure, unaltered, just warp in the material realm.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that is still around as being able to perma kill them because
they
of their...
never. That's one of the things. It was only mentioned when the Blackstone fortresses were a thing, and the Blackstone fortresses haven't gotten any new lore. The new Necron Codex doesn't say the warp kills or harms the Satan, but it doesn't say anything about it whether or not they're fine with it. Like it's kind of one of those gray areas, which is why I was like I wasn't sure if they retconned it.
They don't have a codex yet, right?
They don't have a new codex.
Right.
Their last codex just mentions that
Yeah.
the Necrons can access the webway if the Necrons can sneak out without the Eldar spotting them. But they never try to bother with the warp. And I came to the conclusion that to me says when the Satan came and basically made the Necrons, they kind of shoved the idea of the warp away from them because they didn't want their forces dealing with the warp because it can harm them. But there's no concrete if it still does or not.
The weird thing is, of the limited information we have on the Catan and what they are, which is why I associated them with the power cosmic and just Galactus is because they are the Catan are basically fundamental inherent forces of reality. They're
Yep.
not killable. Like you can rip them apart, you could trap them, but you can't. Like
Yep.
for
Like the
example,
Necrons did. They didn't kill them. They just shattered them.
right? But for example, right, the burning
Well,
one or the
supposedly supposedly the cursed one, the one that the flayed one dude. Apparently, he's officially dead.
well, he's officially bodiless. He's almost like
Yeah,
like Malkav.
out of all of them, he's the one that's classified as dead, as far as we know. You know, obviously, with the way that they're set up, GW can flip around and go, "Surprise, he's back!"
Well, yeah, no, yeah, he was obliterated, but
Yeah.
his obliteration turned into a virus that afflicts the flayed ones.
Yep.
So like,
He essentially transcended into a new form.
yeah, in a way, like you can never have the Flayer back, but
Yeah.
you have it
The Flayer
existing
curse.
as the Flayer curse. So it's a weird sense of obliterated, but not.
Yeah.
It's always kind of a weird like. I don't hate those concepts, but it always kind of irks me a little bit. It's like, can we? I get it, but can we just say concrete? Like it's just like that's not him as a consciousness in the. You know what I mean? Like can we get something, please? It's just like, but
like I said, that's kind of one of the things I find them interesting about is like if someone came up to me and just went, is there any kind of what would be the closest thing to like a god? I would probably say, well, the Satan would be the closest because they are, for the most part, they're the closest thing a mortal will ever get to ascending.
yeah, true. I mean, and again, like the way they've been described in the fluff we have of the Catan thus far is that they are fundamental forces of reality.
Yep.
Even the reason we have the flayed ones is because while the flare itself was obliterated in the process, it's
Yeah.
almost like it went fooled you and infected. You know what I mean? Whether it has a conscience or not, it's a different
It
story.
kind of goes to the whole idea of all the law of matter. Matter can't be destroyed; it's just changed.
Right. So that's what the Catan basically are, and that's why they call it fundamental force of reality. So like nothing will truly obliterate them to the point where they have an absence of that being, which is
Yeah.
why we have the virus. And it's an interesting setup. It just makes me wonder.
And to a degree, the Void Dragon's influence on Mars could be what would happen to him if his shell was completely obliterated.
Right. The Void Dragon's a very weird setup because the fluff with the Catan is that all the Catan are shards.
Yep.
But the Void Dragon's never been confirmed to ever be a shard or ever seen as a shard.
Yes,
So
I believe right now the general group consensus is that the Void Dragon on Mars is the largest of all the shards, and he may be the closest to getting reformed.
Well, the fluff heavily implies that he might in fact be whole, and he's just slumbering.
Oh, that I didn't read. But then
Yeah,
again, I don't read much on the Necrons, to be
Right. I mean,
honest.
that's why it's the Void Dragon's in a weird place because of the whole Tesseract labyrinth thing, sharding everything.
Mhm.
But the Void Dragon, there's never been the fluff states. There's never been a Void Dragon shard on the battlefield. You've never seen the Necrons have a Void Dragon shard ever.
Yeah,
And
they used to have rules for making one, but then they got rid of all that.
yeah, so it's like you've never seen the Void Dragon. The Mars has this dragon on it, right? And it's just been implied through typical GW implying this, if you will,
Yep.
that it's very possible the Void Dragon's whole, which is a truly terrifying thing because if it were to awaken, everything technological in that sector would just be under its command basically instantly. So
It's interesting, definitely. And like the reason why I also say like they're probably the closest we can, like I tend to use them as like my archetype for the old ones because I'm sitting there going, these dudes, if the old ones weren't like them, they wouldn't have started a war against them. They wouldn't have cared.
yeah, I feel like they would if they're not straight up. Like I always feel like they're to bring DBZ into this, the mythos of Kaioshin and Mal Kaioshin. You know what I mean?
Ah, the Makayoshin.
Yeah, the
Which,
idea of good and evil forces that way. I almost feel like if the Satan were basically like evil old ones, and the old ones were like, well, we have to put a stop to this, or the old ones were evil. We always look at it through the prettier race's eyes as they're the best.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
the other concept would also be the old ones may have been close to ascending to a level of the Satan, and the Satan were like, no, only us can exist.
It's very odd. Like I look at both the Satan and then the old ones, and the old ones a bit more so because how vague it is. It's kind of like StarCraft's Xel'Naga. The Xel'Naga made the Protoss and they made the Zerg.
Yes.
And the old ones made the Orcs and they made the Eldar. Like, and I feel like the Xel'Naga were handled a little bit better. And well, the current state of the Xel'Naga is what Xel'Naga, but my point is still, if you play through the StarCraft 2 campaign completely, all three expansions of it, Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm, and then Legacy of the Void, the Xel'Naga are handled, I think, really well, and the whole concept of their powers are handled really well. And that's how I always kind of view the old ones, and to a lesser extent the Satan. And I say lesser extent because we've seen them on the battlefield as rules.
I actually usually use the Xel'Naga as a way of describing the old ones for people who are like, what are the Xel'Naga? What are the old ones? They're like, have you ever played StarCraft?
You ever heard of this little thing called the Xel'Naga? It's basically like that. But like the Satan, though, because I brought up earlier the concept of the hive mind being god-like, and we do have one Catan that we know nothing about, but his title is the Endless Swarm, which got a lot of people thinking it fled and maybe became the hive mind. But
wasn't it also originally the Outcast?
Well, there was an Outcast, and that Outcast has no longer got a name, so I think he's now the Endless Swarm.
Yeah, because I think everyone started talking about the Outcast being the hive mind, and then I guess they just said, you know what, we'll just make it more heavy-handed.
Well, there's the Outsider, which also...
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's a separate Catan, but then when they expanded Catan fluff by 2 paragraphs...
that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the Outsider.
When they expanded the fluff by 2 paragraphs, they introduced the Endless Swarm as another kick in the nads to the conspiracy theorists and going, now which one do you think?
Oh, the worst, whole pantheon discussing screw up, because the Necrons Codex, when they first came out and everything, was a slew of what really happened, what's going on, because they just threw a monkey wrench in a lot of 40k lore in terms of the Eldar. Because of the whole now there's 2 Warren Heavens.
Well, that and also just like the idea of the term Catan, because the Callous Assassin used to have a Catan phase blade.
Yes.
So did Cypher.
But in one paragraph, in the Nightbringer's paragraph in the 3rd Ed Codex, it says the laughing god of the Eldar tricked him into eating the other Satan. Yeah. Then you turn the page to the Deceiver, and it says he tricked the Nightbringer into eating all the other Satan. So then, for a while, people were going, "Oh, the Deceiver is the laughing god."
Yeah, and then now the one who consumed others is the Outsider.
Yeah,
so it's really confusing.
But thankfully, they got rid of the whole laughing god part, which I was happy about.
Well, the Outsider was supposedly tricked by the laughing god.
Well, which that's fine.
But the Deceiver isn't brought up at all in that, so that's good.
It's what my issue is on one page it said one dude and then another dude, which made it seem like they were one and the same, and that's the part.
Yeah, there is some weird fluff inconsistencies because you have fluff representing the night.
Unless there was I guess there might have been a sentence omitted where they were supposed to say the Deceiver came as the laughing god, which I don't know why he would think he would listen to him more than another Satan, but who cares?
Yeah, right. But it's just like it's weird because we have the Outsider who was supposedly tricked into consuming some other Catan, but then you have the
Necrons going, no more.
Yeah, then you had the Nightbringer. Here's the weird part, right? Because before we have the retcon where we got personalities to the Necrons, which I think is overall a benefit, having like
Check that out on our Ramble on the Necrons.
exactly. We had the lore of the star gods. There's only two left because the Nightbringer ate everybody but the Deceiver.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden we have them popping out of the woodwork. So it's like, what's going on here? But talking about how they're the closest things to like what a god straight up would be in the material realm of like 40k has me look at the thing I always try and roll my eyes at whenever it's brought up, this Star Child concept with the Emperor and how he doesn't tap into the warp, he taps into the yin to that yang, which is a stable part of the warp, which is like that when he's saying he might have been manifesting a new god, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been a chaos god, it would have been a god of order. Because the whole idea was he was supposedly tapping into the light, not the dark.
That's
And
actually funny. The theory I heard was is that he was creating a god of unbelief.
well, I mean, I just put the term order because what the concept of the Star Child and the Emperor and why the Emperor is so powerful cycle wise is that he could tap into a part of the warp that wasn't the chaos of it. It was just raw
Yeah.
power, but it had nothing to do with gods. It had nothing to do with the dangers of it. It was just like the light side of the force, if you will, is what he was tapping into. And so like it was like either he was creating a god on accident or he was becoming that thing, as we saw via the lectio divine of the Emperor in the Horus Heresy or Great Crusade time period, where humanity, despite he's trying to bring order and belief, the humanity had no other way to rectify what they were seeing with the Emperor's many capabilities other than he's got to be a god.
Yep. Despite him constantly telling them to stop calling him that.
And so their response was, only a god would say I'm not a god. And it's like, no, that makes no sense. What are you saying? But like, and then you have miracles happening in his image. And and then of course the theory that if we take him off life support, he will transcend and reawaken as a god.
Yep, there's I remember that whole theory. The Star Child thing always confused me because I never would hear the whole story. I would just hear, oh, and then there's the Star Child. And I'm like, where did 2001 come from? Because that's the only Star Child I know.
Well, it's very weird because the Emperor, again, back in the day, it was the 80s, right? There was drugs involved and everything. So 40K's early days were really weird. So, I mean, it was the 80s. It was a time like that. There was cocaine everywhere. That's my explanation because let's be real. The origin story of the Emperor is a whole bunch of shamans committed suicide at the same time.
Yep, and their whole essence formed into the Emperor.
So when you look at that, you go, that's not as impressive as I thought. But and then you have the idea of the Star Child, the Sensei, the Illuminati children of him, and that the whole concept there was we'll find these Sensei, we'll bring them before the Golden Throne, he'll consume them psycho wise and recover. It was a very weird time with the Emperor in Rogue Trader.
Yes, it's interesting with him because of his view take on the warp and the demons and deities and gods and his concept, because for the most part, the reason he told everyone if someone tells you it's a god, it's a trick, was because he was deciding that was the best way to kill the chaos gods. Because if the people didn't believe in the chaos gods, then the chaos gods would weaken to a point where they are non-existent.
Yeah, it's just weird too because you have to wonder, right? Because you have the Emperor who, on the one hand, legacy of belief. There are no gods. The age of reason. I'm gonna make everything an age of reason. We're doing everything via technology and foresight and understanding. And I am the god. I am the god machine of the. I am the omniscire to Mars. Don't worry about that. That's to get them on our side. And like.
Yep. The whole thing that he's just saying if they want to believe it, fine. That doesn't hurt anybody.
Right. So you have him.
Well, actually, if the story of him plopping the machine the Void Dragon there is really legit, that would be why he doesn't really care about the whole Omnissiah thing, because he knows what that is going towards, and he's like, that's fine, because I'm cool with that thing being worshipped like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's always an interesting story, that concept, but also, like, I feel like Also, that's fine because they're worshiping tech. They're
Yep.
not worshiping the concept of power
Yep.
or secrets or magic that
Yep.
will, like, what they worship gives no power to the chaos gods.
Yep. And the thing that they, and in essence, the thing that the core of their belief system doesn't gain power through faith.
Right. And, so it's an interesting setup that way. But then you have, the creation of the Primarch project. And it's like, okay, I'm with you on the whole Age of Reason thing, and you know how to tap into the warp properly. And yes, they were stolen from you by the Chaos Gods or whatever the case is. But why on earth did you make Magnus Magnus?
Well,
If he's Psyker Supreme.
the other thing is
it's
why did he ask the Chaos Gods for help?
I feel like it's a case of, I don't. It's not a case of don't cross the streams, but a case of now I have a route to you to get to you. Like if it, like supposedly asking the Chaos Gods for help and then putting up wars to try and stop them. I look at it more as Prometheus bringing fire to the humanity. Like I must steal this stuff from them,
Yeah.
and the best way to do that is look how powerful I am. I would be a perfect avatar of their powers. Oh, by the way, I don't like you guys. I'm just using you. But like,
Wah, wah.
it's a weird setup though. Like, why make Magnus Magnus? Now you could say in the process of the Primarchs being stolen and scattered to the winds, Primarch was infused with psychic powers and wasn't before. But then that doesn't explain his legion. You know what I
I
mean?
think that was all because of his project with the Golden Throne. He needed him to be that psychically, so he didn't have to sit in the chair himself.
Well, yeah, but my point is like clearly the Emperor has a mastery or is tapping into something that Magnus doesn't know about. You'd think once you rediscovered him, you'd be like, yo, Magnus, listen, I know you usually use this door to get your power, but I'm going to show you this back door that's
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah, it is weird that if he could tap into another form, that he wouldn't tell him.
Well, I mean, not to put rules of a war game or an RPG into the lore, because you can't. If you did that, everything would be really boring and die all the time.
Yes.
But like, one would have to assume, short of actually being a god, which is a big theory, obviously, and where the whole ecclesiarchy sprang up from, was during that time period. If he wasn't a god, he has an. He must have some way he could have better trained Magnus when he found him. I mean, Magnus is the second most powerful psyker of the fledgling Imperium. I would say second over Malcador the Sigilid, because Malcador is flesh and bone human.
I always said it was the Emperor, Magnus, then Malcador.
Right. But for all Malcador's being third fiddle, he can tap into something as safe as the Emperor can. Why didn't you
Yeah.
do that with Magnus? like, especially if the Emperor kind of saw this coming, you'd think he'd be like, well, maybe I should stop this. So it's like, it's a weird setup. Another weird setup is why make Lorgar the way he was, which having to find something to worship.
Yep. You could have showed him the right way to worship.
Right, and and this is where I find the theory that the Emperor was a fledgling god, perhaps humanity's version of a star god coming to being, but not quite a star god and not quite a chaos god entity, like humanity's Gork and Mork, you know what I mean? Or humanity's Isha, is because you have this being that existed forever, basically immortal in human history, that has advanced knowledge of technology, biology, psychology, and capability. He's gigantic. But he can hide it with his abilities. But he's also detached, and he's lost. He's not quite down with the normal mundane things. You could see some clear oversights that only a god would have with being detached from mortal problems.
Yeah.
I'm not going. I'll bust in and save Angron because this just make A plus B is going to equal C, and it's the way of things. But you're not factoring in all that muddy water. Same thing with Lorgar. It's like, I'm going to punish Lorgar because I am not a god. There are no gods. Don't worship gods. And the best way to do that is to make him kneel in the ashes of his greatest achievement of worship. Clearly, that makes the most sense on a detached deity level, sure. You know what I mean? So it's a weird. It's the problem with the Emperor is the Star Child Shaman Illuminati Sensei thing. You know, like it's the opposite problem of Gork and Mork, where we have nothing to go on.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite. Now, do you think we'll ever see the hive mind? Not so much see it as like, boom, here it is, model, because that makes
Yeah.
no sense.
But
But like,
will
because
we ever in the lore see him?
like yeah, because the Tyranid hive fleets we've encountered are just the probing edges of the main fleet. That's always been the concept. Is like it's using its fingers to figure things out before showing its body. So, do you think we'll ever see this potential god creature? I mean, if you think about it,
Honestly, I don't think so.
yeah, I think you might be right there. I feel it's such a tease for so long that we'll never quite see it.
I'm more of the concept of the hive mind is where whichever galaxy it started with, it's there and it's spreading out its roots. So it's kind of like in essence like ivory. You could see the tendrils, but you may not actually see where the plant started. And I think that's the deal with the hive mind. We'll see his tendrils and where he's been, but we'll never see the root of him. Or
I'm,
she. I'm not
yeah,
going to deny the fact that it might be a girl.
yeah, or just gender nothing. We just because it's a extra galactic being. You know what I mean? Like like our laws of reality are governed by our not so much governed by our galaxy, but our don't have to extend into some other galaxy.
Yes.
But like I've had a similar concept that maybe it's kind of Overmind-esque, and we might see like a Cerebrate eventually to throw StarCraft out there. But like we might not ever see the Overmind, but we'll see a Cerebrate maybe come into being like a really powerful central high fleet thing of OMG what happened. But like we'll never actually see the Big Daddy
Isn't the
itself.
Swarm Lord supposed to be something like that?
It's weird. The Swarm Lord's like their perfect weapon. It's a weird setup. Because the Swarm Lord is the Swarm Lord, but it's also a Swarm Lord that can be in any high fleet now. So it's like
Yeah.
it's weird. But the Tyranids are weird. But but like I also have to wonder because the Silent King supposedly straight up nearly ran into the Tyranids, yes, but it's implied the hive mind or saw the hive mind in his travels and went, gotta go. But I feel like if we'll never see the hive mind proper, even if it is moving, because that would imply a timeline shift forward immensely. You know what I mean? Like it would have to be the 43rd millennium, you know, to see it. I think, which we haven't even actually finished the 13th Black Crusade for the fourth time. You know what I mean? It's like
No, it's apparently officially over.
Is it finally over for the fourth time?
He achieved his goal, which was to create the Great Rift. So he did the Great Rift. He attacked Macragge. Gilliman went, "Get back!" And he went, "Okay, I'm done. I did what I came to do," and he left. And now he's planning 14.
God, because this is like the fourth time we've went back in time into the 13th Black Crusade, right? It's like
Well, let's see. Third Ed is when it happened. Fourth Ed kind of happened during the middle of it.
fifth
and
went
then-
back to the beginning, and then every time after that, it went back to the beginning.
Six went back to the beginning, and seventh went to 5 minutes from midnight. And then Fall of Cadia, which was the start of the Black Crusade, and Rise of the Primarch, I am 99% certain, because Abaddon did what he wanted to do, which was make Cadia fall because he destroyed the pillars, and he opened up the Great Rift. So I'm pretty sure Black Crusade number 13 is done.
Okay, it's like because it really is like the third or fourth time we went, and time to fight the 13th Black Crusade. It's like, wait, what? What? It's like
I'm actually curious now.
I remember reading a novel where it was over, and this was like back and forth ahead.
Yep.
I was like,
Holy boobily stuff.
but like, so, one of the things that I find odd about godness and deityness outside of the Emperor, outside of the Eldar gods, which really are, still, if you're not Eldar, they're not on your side, right?
Yep.
But like,
They're one of the few gods, honestly, outside of the greater demons where you actually see what it's supposed to look like.
yeah, I just feel like outside of potentially the Emperor, and then if we're gonna try and cast it to light and dark in 40k, which is really, really a bad idea in my opinion because nothing's good. but like, but if we're gonna try and cast it to light and dark, you would have Craftworld Eldar, whatever you want to call it, humanity, kinda the good side of it, like the two people that are good, but like, and that's really about it. That would, because the Tau don't have any deities that we know of,
Yep, as far as I'm aware, they do not have any.
and they better not start gaining any with the supposed Greater Evil book that's coming out.
Greater Evil book.
Yeah, it's a Tau story of a potentially and it's got me concerned. Put it that
I
way.
see.
It's called the Greater Evil. And the tagline for it is the dark side of the Tau. I'm like, don't you do this. Just do whatever you do. Don't do what I think you're gonna do.
Too late. They done it.
But like, anything associated with a god in 40k is just straight up bad for the galaxy.
Mostly, yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, it just makes me wonder. At this point, can GW really push forward with a plot here? We saw what happened with Age of Sigmar. It's. I'm not saying that it screwed up everything Warhammer Fantasy wise, but it basically was a reset button. You lost a whole faction or two and a half. You had different planes come into being. You had the lost Primarch. I mean Sigmar with his forces show up, and all that to kind of progress and rewrite story. They can't really. Could they? I'm not saying hit the reset button with 40k, but at what point would you say they could progress forward with until it becomes an okay? We gotta start wipe. We gotta do something here. Because would you say that they would have the Golden Throne plug pulled? Would you say that they would have the Chaos Gods actually manifest? Would you say that the Void Dragon wakes up? That the Eldar get a god? That they go, hey, they're not all dead? Wow, this is amazing. Like, would Gork and or Mork show up? Like, at what point or combination of do you think they could get away with it before it becomes, all right, timeout, reset, what's going on?
That's really tough to say. I would have to say that if they were ever to do it, it would be in a form of like an end timesy like event, which would end with the throne deactivating.
Gotcha. You see, I feel like GW, in a way that kind of is a bad thing, has put too much end game potential in all their fluff, no matter what, except for the Tau because they're so young. Like, everything else has end game potential in there, right?
Yeah.
Gazgul just gets the green tide and the United as one, and they just wreak havoc everywhere. The Chaos Gods get enough influence to spill out a major demonic incursion everywhere at once. The Eldar are Eldar, and stuff happens bad, right? Because they don't have the numbers, but they can cause one of those events to happen in their favor. The Necrons, the Silent King says, all right, unleash your Catan, it's time to do this. The Tyranids have a main force show up, and it's like, oh, we were not prepared. It's like, and all that, but like, it's everywhere. Like, it's not even like, oh, it's the chaos that's going to do it. The Grey Knights have had for several editions now in their fluff a little box with a seal on it is only to be opened on the most apocalyptic of times, that the only matching seal in the known galaxy is on the Golden Throne, and there's inside instructions on what to do next. And it's heavily implied that when push truly comes to shove, the Grey Knights are going to attack the Golden Throne to disable it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why would you put that in there like that? Like what? You've laid this egg amongst a sea of eggs that are just waiting to burst forth, and it's like, and given your structure, we're probably gonna in 9th edition go back to the beginning of the 13th Black Crusade. So it's like, it's just, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder how far we can go without true retconning, because let's be real, the sensei, the shamanism, the Star Child, the Slan, and a lot of stuff is not. Even the squats are not fully retcon gone, never existing. Right? There's very little that's been 100%. I mean, the squats are brought up again just to be eaten again. I get that, but like, it's we don't have the retconning like you do in other genres or in other settings, where it's like, no, now with this edition, this is how Peter Parker got his powers or whatever. And it might be different from how it was in the past, but that's how he got his powers. Now this is how it is. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. You done, right? We don't have that in GW 40K, and we didn't really have that in fantasy either, which is why I think they eventually went, forget it, Age of Sigmar, we get to restart. Because we have the Star Child existing with the shamanism, existing with Gork and Mork, and the old ones with the Catan, but not the Catan, and then the Chaos Gods and Malal, and lesser Chaos Gods that still exist. Like, they're not even retconned out of existing.
Yep, no, they're still slightly there.
So, like, that's my concern, not just for the idea of deities in 40K, because, let's be real, when it comes to wargaming, they don't really matter outside of story, plot, and fluff for your collecting, right? You might be collecting a force dedicated to Khorne. Well, clearly it matters for your force because they are going to collect skulls for the Skull Throne. I get it.
Yep.
But it's not like you're not going to roll, quintuple sixes and have Khorne axe land from the heavens and destroy your enemy's force or anything like that. Like, we don't have that in the game yet. But, but like, outside, if you're somebody who plays the game and enjoys the lore and fluff it and likes, I know you're like me, your force is not just, and look at this cool looking force, it has a story behind it.
Yep.
This is where it becomes muddy waters, where it's kind of like, so do my orcs worship Mork? Because I don't have Gaskell, I don't understand what's going on. Like, it's like it's just, it seems weird.
Well, we know Gazgal Thraka does.
Yeah, we know he has like
Gorguts.
both.
Sorry,
Gorguts. Gorguts.
Because he always goes, I have the power of Gork and Mork.
It's true. But, like, you look at it and you go, well, okay. The Eldar believe their god's dead, except for maybe we have the ability to summon forth an avatar of Cain. So maybe they worship Cain, your force.
Yep. If you ask the Eldar, they go, they're dead.
Yeah.
Except for Ziggurak.
And then the Necrons...
His name is spelt weird and pronounced weird.
Well, welcome to weirdness.
Because his name is Ziggurak, but it's like Ceaughh or something.
Yeah. Look, we don't... Look, it's weird. It's like, we have Tzeentch. Enough said.
Yep.
Ziggurak, I'll take Ziggurak. But is there, if GW went, Matt, look, we want to progress forward with deity stuff in 40K. What's your biggest suggestion to us? What would put you off if we did it? What would it be?
What would put me off?
Like, not make you go, that was really dumb. I don't want to do that. Like, what? Like, if they wanted to, like, push forth the lore and do something with any of the deity-esque stuff that we have in 40K, which there's a vast amount, what would they do? Not necessarily it has to be, oh, well, if Ziggurak is this, then I'm out. But, like, in general with deityism or the
I I
stuff.
honestly think probably one of the in my personal opinion what would be a very interesting piece that they could do that would I would find interesting is if the emperor died.
That would be interesting. Now, what would you find if they did? You go, this is dumb.
If what would be dumb is if the rumor everyone keeps constantly saying is going to happen is the emperor becomes a dreadnought.
Why would they say that?
There is a rumor been going around forever that the emperor is going to be they're going to find a way to put him in a dreadnought that functions like the golden throne, and the emperor is now leading the imperium in a dreadnought.
That doesn't make any sense based on what the Golden Throne does,
I
which is be an
I
opening for the webway.
I fully agree. This has been a rumor that every time it comes up, I'm like, why would you want this?
That is dumb.
But
That is so dumb because that'd be like 1,000 point model that with special rule you win the game. Like you can't do that.
but that has been an ongoing rumor that I always go, this better not happen. And it's the whole Emperor coming back as a dreadnought. But I think a really cool move in the story would be the Emperor just dies, because then that is where it gets really grim dark, because you lost the Astronomicon. You lost a good chunk of people's faith, and chaos now runs really rampant because the last light of humanity's hope is gone. And in a sense, humanity is in the same boat as the Eldar.
It would be an interesting setup. I mean, the
Especially
Astronomicon.
with the whole union now, the temporary alliance with the Eldar, with Rubuti Gilliman. I think it's really cool because then you have the Primarchs coming back, and they're trying their best to keep everyone together, but there's still that grim feeling of, yeah, we have the Primarchs, but we don't have the Emperor anymore.
See, for me, if that, I've always thought the idea of like what they can do with the Emperor in my head, and
Mhm.
if they did that, it would have to be a package deal where, look, the Lions awakened. Hey, look, the Khan survived. Oh, look, Vulcan showed up. Like it would have to be a package deal for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that's kind of one of the things I'm going off of what they're going off here, which seems to be Primarchs coming back. I was like, well, then the next logical step is for their dad to die.
Right, and considering the Astronomicon has been flickering lately, it's a good the setup is there. It's been there
Yep.
for years. I just feel like if they were to kill off not kill off, if the Emperor's mortal shell were to finally disintegrate, or if it was just if the Golden Throne was to fail and the Emperor just basic, because let's be real, with any of the art that's been associated with the Emperor on the Golden Throne, he's dead. He's
Yes.
so dead.
I
His spirit his spirit is being tethered to the throne. If
actually,
that
ooh, I just thought of something that would be really cool. Maybe that could
what?
work because you'd have that small, slim glimmer of hope, and you wouldn't really totally screw your whole universe up. Is he dies and permanently becomes the Astronomicon?
Yeah.
So the Astronomicon is still running, and they don't have to keep sacrificing psychers to him, but the Emperor is gone. Kind
That
of
could be
like the
another
whole Hal Jordan becoming the Sun for a while
right.
in DC Comics. Like he's there, but he's gone.
Right, like that would be an interesting setup for me if the Emperor's mortal ties were severed and the Golden Throne was, because the weird thing is when fifth touched upon this specifically in the
Yep.
main rules, talking about how systems were failing on the Golden Throne and the best of the Mechanicum couldn't fix it.
Yep.
And it was like, well, we can. It's kind of like we can stop the bleeding, but we can't, fix it. We
If
can.
only land was still alive.
Right. Like we can keep it running, but that climate controlled cup holder doesn't work anymore. Like we don't know how to make it come back. Like we can't make the remote control work again. But we can keep the Astronomicon going, so that's good.
And
Like
the 8-track is stuck with Funky Town in it.
yeah, exactly. But like if his mortal ties were severed and the Golden Throne took a dive and even if the Astronomicon went bleak, there would have to be, for lack of a better term, whispers throughout the Imperium of the Emperor. Like I would want it to be the concept of the Emperor as we knew him is gone, but the Emperor is still doing something, and that might turn to something good for us. Like you said, maybe the Astronomicon is still lit or something. But I wouldn't want to be. And now we move on to the next chapter, no Emperor ever, because I feel the Emperor of mankind is so tied to the Imperium and to 40k that if you just got rid of it, it would be like, well, yeah, it's 40k, but now the groove is off. It's like
For me,
even,
I think one of the reasons why I kind of think it would be cool, even because we have the Primarchs coming back, and the goal was always to just be like, okay, I'm gonna leave. The Primarchs will pick up the slack, and then hopefully humanity will develop to a point where they don't even need them anymore.
yeah,
So I
I
kind
just
of wouldn't mind if like a good chunk of the Primarchs come back, basically replace the Emperor, how Gilliman kind of is right now.
right. I would want the Emperor to be kind of like the like they're like physically gone, but like not that he's a straight up deity being worshipped by the Imperium, but kind of like, hey, look, our the like that one warp rift that opened up and swallowed a bunch of enemy stuff was called the Storm of the Emperor's Wrath or whatever. The and was thought to be a miracle of the Emperor to destroy that enemy fleet. Like stuff like that to be happening here and there, not enough to be like, hey, we can turn the tide with belief in the Emperor's sacrifice to us, but to make you go, maybe there's something on our side. Maybe there is something on our side that we can't fully explain, but we're not going to touch upon it because to do so would be heresy. You know what I mean? Like just something to kind of give them, like if the Emperor went, but all of a sudden Sarkin mutations became a lot more stable, or something like that. Because the whole idea was the Emperor was trying to slowly cultivate the next evolution of humanity.
Yes.
So it would be kind of cool if his passing and the return of the Primarchs signaled and heralded humanity's evolution proper. You know what I mean? That would be an interesting setup, although you had to contend with the whole hereticus going, it's a witch, burn her. But like, so that's a little weird setup. But, for me, I always found the concept of the Golden Throne failing a really cool concept because they've implied it 6 ways to Sunday.
Yes.
What I think would be really dumb is if in this major rift out waltz the Chaos Gods. Like, I feel like never, like, if Tzeentch itself in its weird
ever-changing form
and Khorne dragged his skull throne out, with him, would truly...
Where can I put this?
Yeah, like, if they truly came, like, if it was truly, yes, the time is ripe for the slaughter, and they themselves showed up, I'd be like, look, no, I'm done. This is dumb, because the whole concept of the chaos is they want to infect the realm of the Materium. They want to take it over. They want to rip it apart and consume it and bring it into the warp because they can't go out to it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that's why you have their demons and their heralds and their whatever, because the Chaos Gods just can't, but they want it, so they want to bring it in. So if all of a sudden it's like, and with all this warpness going on in the galaxy, look who stepped out. Slaanesh.
Yeah. No, it would be silly if the gods themselves just showed up. It'd be like, then if you could do that, what was the point with all the heralds and the greater demons and all that jazz? Right. This fight would have been over a lot faster if you could do this the whole time.
That's why, like, part of me is a little concerned with the Primarchs coming up because, like, just like we talked about in on Fearless Games moons ago, when the Horus Heresy started being a thing, we got rules for the Primarchs. It's just my concern was, they're depicted as demigods of humanity, and you're gonna kind of water it down a bit, and then it becomes kind of silly to see like how crazy they can be. But they've handled it well.
Yes, for the most part. The
big concern is of godlike things, like giving the Emperor rules. It's still the big. I'm cringing already just waiting for it to happen because it almost feels inevitable in that series.
Oh yeah.
And then doing that in 40k for anything of that on that tier fully unleashed Star God, Eldar, Kane, dude coming back somehow.
Inyad.
Inyad itself.
Inyad's the only dude who can come to life because he's the only god that wants to do crap and can actually do stuff.
Right, but like at least Inyad is limited by the fact that its power is kind of based off of the Infinity Circuit. So.
Yep, his power will reach full awakening when all the Eldar die.
Yeah, so right now, it's like he can come back, but the power it has is still pretty insignificant to the power of the Chaos Gods.
Yes.
So that's okay.
It's okay as long as he's strong enough to kill Slaanesh.
Well, he's still not, but
Well, not now.
not now. But like, it's okay that's why having it kind of come back now with an Avatar, it's like, okay, you're not that strong. It makes sense. We're okay with this.
Eldrad thought he could kickstart the apocalypse and he failed.
Yeah. So, but like, if you start bringing up like Slaanesh or the Void Dragon with rules fully awakened or Mork or anything like that, it would be like, I feel like you're missing the concept of the grandeur and it being just out of our reach, but enticing us to look, to continue on. You know what I mean? Like, if you just drop it on the table, it's kind of like, well, we kind of jumped the shark, didn't we? It's like,
now, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Speaking about deities and gods and such, Slaanesh, sticking around or inevitably going to be gotten rid of because GW wants to cater to kids?
I feel like as much as GW wants to cater to kids, I feel like 40K is an exception because kids are playing it already. Plenty, and unlike Fantasy's realm, 40K is a lot more impersonal with the worshippers of the Chaos Gods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In Fantasy, it was a lot more. Check out this divine champion of Slaanesh and how excessive he is and she is and they are and whatnot, and look at how whatever. With 40K, it's kind of like, I'm digging this air, and that's about it. It's like
I do feel, personally, I don't think they'll get rid of him/her. I mostly say her because of the Eldar.
Right.
But I think they'll tone her down.
I do think that he, she, it will get toned down, and I think the gods themselves have been toned down. I mean, even Khorne.
Yeah.
Khorne's slaughter and death and murder and war and slaughter and murder and skulls and blood, and that's not in your face as it used to be several editions ago. Nurgle was always Nurgle. I mean, Nurgle was fairly neutral in that respect, and Tzeentch is Tzeentch.
Well, a good example is look at how Nurgle went from being like this almost realistic gore look to this kind of more cartoonish look. Making it more easy to pass on at the age limit they're going for. Oh, it's not real. It's all pretend. See, it's pretend.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the Plague Marines are very much still realistically looking. Like anything demonic for Nurgle has gotten more of what's been in his fluff, the jolly Grandpa Nurgle.
Yep.
Now his stuff looks more like, come, let Papa Nurgle hug you. And it's I get what people have concerns with, but I also feel like it's unnerving in its own way. Like, these are things of death and decay and pustulence, and they look so happy almost.
Yep.
It's kind of creepier.
That one bit with the one Nurgle demon full of sass that everyone's just loving.
Like, it's almost creepier than what he had in the past, which was just a fly head on a demon. Like, this is almost creepier in a certain respect. So, I do get the concern there. I just feel like Slaanesh,
like, they can like I said, they can easily tone him down without getting rid of her.
Yeah, there's no need to do like. And 40K's always had the gods, like I said, a bit more impersonal, a bit more toned down to begin with. They weren't quite as direct, because in fantasy, it's not like the gods are kind of on that plane to begin with. Here, it's the warp. They're eons away in the warp. They're not even here, like in 40K. Yeah, it's their demons and their crazy worshippers that you got to deal with. And I feel like where you're gonna see the toning down, personally, I think the most is in lore and novels, where we saw them basically for that, I'm just gonna say it for lack of a better term, sodomizing the Primarch to try and get the demon out of them.
Yep, I've heard about that. I'm like hoping that I don't. I'm dreading that I'll accidentally read the novel it's in.
I read it. It's nothing graphic.
Yeah.
It's just, but you can tell what they're implying,
Yeah.
and how it fits with Slaanesh, the excess, and all that. That type of stuff is definitely gonna go bye bye.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't direct and graphic or anything, or didn't specifically say anything like
Yes.
that, you could tell us what they were going for. That's gonna go away. But I don't, and maybe the Slaanesh demonettes will get a bit more clothing. Outside of that, I don't see much needing to be toned down on the 40k side of things. 40k, I feel like, I feel like they got more to worry about with people going on about wolf pelts and, and fur, and just the nature of the genocide that 40k is. I mean, 40k is a hellish setting that really you can't tackle anything individually in there without tackling the whole setting as a whole, like as a whole. Like if you're gonna try and go, well, my kid wants, I don't want my kid playing 40k because look at the Daemons. I'd be like, listen, sweet cheeks.
Sweet cheeks.
Whether it's a dad or a mom saying this, more so if it's a dad, just to kind of creep him out. But it's like, listen, you're worried about some plastic demonettes. I get it. Okay, it could stand to have a full sport bra on. That'd be great. But this is genocide the game, and you're okay with that. It's like, let's just be real here for a second. You want your 7-year-old to play genocide the game. That's what you want. Okay. Okay. You should probably be more worried about the game as a whole versus the little characters therein. But I don't think we'll lose anything deity wise. In fact, if anything, I think we might gain something to offset going into the background. Like I think Slaanesh will stay around, but maybe Molal will make an appearance again to kind of offset the lack of Slaanesh doing what it was doing so much.
Supposedly they're gonna not be doing anything generic for a while for Chaos, and it's all gonna be God related.
Right, but what I mean is, like, if I don't think they're gonna make Slaanesh go into the woodworks and be PG and basically gone. But what I'm saying is, we might see a fifth Chaos God coming into some type of power, like Malal. Like they never got rid of it. It's always been there as a concept.
Because
Malal
I think they wrote him in such a way where they'll like, okay, we will make it where we won't make any money off of him because of the comic company that owns him, but we'll make it where if we ever get the full rights to him, we can throw him back in.
Right. So I think they might try to change it so it's not like, they might try to retcon that naming so they can get around that.
Yeah.
And then just throw that if they really are getting pressured for Slaanesh to go and sit in the bleachers.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're gonna see that again. 40k is not a happy setting, and that's the least of the worries to tackle is one chaos god in a fictional setting, and more so is the
for the
burn
most
the witch,
part,
burn those that aren't you.
For the most part, I feel a lot of the whole she's going away is just to see people freak out about no, do not want change.
I mean, honestly, of all the god stuff in 40k, all the deity stuff, the chaos gods are the one that can't. They're too intrinsic to the central story.
Basically, yeah.
Like, you could straight up just stop talking about Isha whenever, never bring her up again in Nurgle's domain. You're not getting rid of her. You're not saying she's no longer exists. But you never have to bring her up and it wouldn't hurt anything. Same thing with Assyrian. Or even, the only one you could really do that with is Cain. But you're going to say he's dead and there's avatars that have his kindling for war. And that's it. And that's basically got rid of him but still have him around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can even just stop talking about the laughing god. Just keep it in the background and never bring it up. It's not retconned away. It's just not talked about, and it wouldn't really impact the overall story of chaos. Gods are the ultimate evil that has to be stopped. But we also have all this other stuff that's trying to take over the galaxy as well, which is bad. You know what I mean? Like, you got the Tyrans want to eat it, the Necrons want to own it, the Eldar want everybody else to not own it, the Tau want to get it, the Imperium we'll blow it up so nobody else can have it. So it's like you have all this other problems going on top of the Chaos Gods. And therefore, of all the deities, I feel like the Chaos Gods can't really be messed with. And I feel like they tried messing with the Catan, but they backpedaled a lot. It went from them being two amazing gods of, oh my god, so strong, to they're shards of nothingness now, to, oh, whoa, what we meant was the ones that were imprisoned, okay? They're still really powerful. Like, they backpedaled a lot from 5th to 7th or 6th or whatever. So that's why I think we probably won't see too much being tamed, because they tried it with the Catan and it didn't work. In fact, what happened with that? We got more of them. So it's like, so,
Dude,
whoops.
That is true. We did get more of them.
Yep. So, any closing statements for about 40k deities and demons stuff? You know, like anything that you think best sums up your overall thoughts on this concept in the game?
Do not believe those that claim themselves to be gods, for they are just demons trying to trick you.
There you go. You heard it here first, folks. But I would say, you know, it's definitely for people who are more into the fluff. Because outside of knowing the 4 Chaos Gods' names, you don't need to know anything else to play the game. Like, you don't even have to really know them too much. The player who plays that particular army will definitely tell you about them. So, so like, you don't have to really know it for playing. It's more for those who want to dive into the fluff and look more philosophically into things. My one thing I will say is this. I've played a lot of Magic the Gathering in my day. And I have people of faith and not of faith get offended by the game that I was playing, because it's like, oh, it's magic, and it's not like it's literal magic, but it's depicting things such as, like, you know, blasphemy or stuff like that, because it's, you know, these different godlike things and so on and so forth. My best advice is, we talked all about the Gods of Slaughter, Access, the Void Dragon, and Eldari things, you know, space elf gods and whatnot. It's just, really don't take it seriously. Like, we're not here. Hopefully nobody has come away from this thinking they really are talking about this if it's a real pantheon, because it's not. like this is like
made up.
It's all made up, and
fictional characters.
Fictional characters. It's just whenever you bring up the G word, gods, it people tend to tense up sometimes. So hopefully, if you're into this war game, you already know that. But just keep that in mind, especially when you're talking about it. Like, just remember that to listen to what you're saying as you're saying it, and then take a step back and go, that sounded a little bit too far for a fictional game. If so, you know, just keep that in mind for next time. But it's a lot of fun to think about. I mean, this is what kind of drives the lore of this game, is the Chaos Gods and potentially the God Emperor and whatnot. So fun to be had, but just remember, keep it fun. Don't get too serious with it. Tzeentch is not going to come and grant you weird magic powers.
No, he does not do that.
No, because he's just writing on paper. But anyway, so except for the Catan, watch out for them. They could be around. You never know. But anyways, I think that's it. So as Matt mentioned, we are 2 pillars of the Fearless for the Fearless games, and we are trying to get more stuff going on there, podcasty wise and whatnot. So that's more just all-purpose gaming of wargaming typically, but all-purpose gaming in general. It's not going to be just talking about Chaos Gods and whatnot, although we, you know, it's whatever's topical, and 40k tends to make itself topical a lot of the time. So
it's also the thing we tend to just want to talk about.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, as much as I love Battletech, I can't really bring anything new news-wise to the table aside from it still exists.
It exists.
That's about it. And they're just happy to be included. So that's it from me. So until next time.